Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Western and Southern Area Planning Committee on Thursday, the 12th of June, 2025. For the benefit of the public attending today or watching on the live stream, I'm Councillor Bolwell, Chair of this committee. My Vice Chair is Councillor Isenk. The meeting is being live streamed and will be available to view on the Council website after the meeting. By attending this meeting, you consent to being filmed. Can I remind everyone that when you are speaking, please speak directly into the microphones so that you can be clearly heard and seen. The Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public is invited. All attendees must comply with the ruling of the Chair. They must not interrupt the meeting or cause undue disturbance. To support this, please switch off your mobile phones or select silent mode for the duration of the meeting. And those using Teams, please ensure microphones are on mute and your device volume is set to 0. This maintains audio quality. Only those who have registered to speak in accordance with the speaking protocol will be invited to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. That will be limited to the first 3 people objecting to and the first 3 people supporting the application to have registered along with the Parish Council and Ward member. No material is to be circulated to members of the committee. We had 4 applications to determine today. The applications, as shown as item has 6, has to be deferred, I'm afraid, so we will be moving straight to 7 after 5. The case officer will be invited to present the report and recommendations. Next, I will invite members of the public who have registered to speak with the Democratic Services Officer before the deadline to address the committee in the following order: public against, public support, applicant agent, town or parish council, and ward members. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. Following on from the registered public speakers, the planning officers will have the opportunity to address any salient points they wish to clarify, and committee members will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the planning officers before moving on to their debate. Please remember that when we go to councillor questions and debate, for the benefit of the public watching, can the members state their name and ward when addressing the meeting? I will now move to the roll call. Officers involved in today's meeting include Anne Collins, Development Manager, Area Manager, Phil Crowther, Legal Business Partner, Regulatory, Bob Burden, Senior Planning Officer, Robert Parr, Planning Officer, Catherine Melhuish, Conservation and Design Team Leader, Steve Tapscott, Senior Planning Officer, Megan Rochester, Senior Democratic Services Officer, and Josh Kennedy, Democratic Services Officer. I will now do the roll call for committee members. Myself, Councillor Dave Bolwell, Councillor Neil Isenk is my Vice Chair. Good morning, Neil. Councillor Matt Bell. Morning, Matt. Councillor Simon Christopher. Thank you, Simon. Councillor Paul Kimber. Good morning, Paul. Councillor Craig Monks. Good morning, Craig. Councillor David Northam. Morning, David. Councillor Louis O'Leary. Morning, Louis. Councillor Pete Roper. Good morning, Pete. And Councillor David Shortell. Good morning. We now move to apologies. Could I have the apologies, please, Josh?
Thank you. Yes, so we've received apologies for absence today from Councillors Kate Weller and Belinda Borden.
Lovely, thank you. Now move to declarations of interest. Members, do any of you have any declaration of interest you wish to make before we start the meeting? I'll move first of all to Councillor Matt Bell, please.
Good morning, Councillor Matt Bell, Radipole Ward. I was previously on Weymouth Town Council Planning and Licensing Committee, and at one of those previous meetings, we did submit a comment of which I was part of the vote. It was a vote of no objection. In September 24, I believe. So for that reason, I'll step out during the Colwell Shopping Centre item.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, if you leave the room, and we will call you back when the item's finished. Thank you. Councillor David Northam, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was a member of Weymouth Town Council Planning Committee back in February 2023 when the first comments were made by Weymouth Town Council, which was no objection. I would like to listen to the officer's presentation. Is that possible? And then I'm happy to leave to avoid any difficulty. Thank you.
Yes, I've just checked, and that's fine. Councillor Northam, you may stay. Sorry, Councillor Bell?
Sorry, just very briefly, I got the date wrong, so it was September 23 was when I was involved with the discussion about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Bell. We now move to the minutes. To agree and sign the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 8th of May, 2025. If everyone's happy with the accuracy, then I'll sign them as a true record of the meeting at the end. Okay, everyone's happy. Thank you very much. Moving to public participation, we don't have any members of the public today, so I'll move on to item 5, which is the first planning application. So if Councillor Bell would like to leave the chamber, and Councillor Northam may stay and listen. So it's P/OUT/2022-06846, which is Colwell Shopping Centre, School Street, Weymouth, Dorset, DT48NG. It'll be presented by Bob Burden. So I'll pass this over to Bob, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Right, okay, so this is an outline application, but with a lot of details submitted with it, which cover access, appearance, layout and scale, but not landscaping. So a lot of detailed information with this application. As we can see here, the site is obviously defined by the red line here, and the building in question is the Colwell Shopping Centre here, which would be replaced, would be demolished and replaced with a building on a similar footprint. There are accesses, pedestrian access down along that side of the building there, around the rear of it, and vehicular access is available from Commercial Road over here into this existing service and delivery yard. And that area of the application site is Dorset Council owned. Site is within the defined development boundary, within the Weymouth Town Centre area. It's within the conservation area, within the Town Centre conservation area. A lot of listed and historic buildings in the area. Number 3 there is listed. Masonic Hall is listed, grade 2. That's a characterful, unlisted but historic building, the Myrtle Cottage there. Other listed buildings off here, down here. So quite an important area historically and in terms of character of the town. Obviously the town council offices are over in this building here, the library over there. So this aerial view just gives you an idea of the footprint of the existing Colwell Shopping Centre as we see in this location here. Also gives you a sense of the relationship with the backs of St Thomas Street here, various sort of rear outshoot extensions, generally at a lower level relative to the main strike of the buildings on the frontage to St Thomas Street there. Myrtle Cottage opposite there, obviously the library here, and the service and delivery yard over here. And this area here is the backs of the commercial premises relating to those fronting onto Lower Bond Street, so Boots, etc. And the Range complexes over this area here. So on the proposed ground floor here, we have a new building proposed which fronts onto School Street, opposite Great George Street, coming down here. And as you can see, the proposal includes retaining an element of retail on the frontage here, a separate shop unit there, a restaurant area which will be available to guests staying at the holiday accommodation and to the public, kitchen area to the rear there. And going back further into the building, sleeping accommodation on the ground floor is available in that area there. You can see the bedroom accommodation there. Obviously, one of the key issues with this application is flood risk, and that the site lies within flood zones 2 and 3, mostly within zone 2, although a small area lies within zone 3 up towards this sort of part of the site here. In response to the comments and requirements of the local flood authority and Environment Agency, the floor levels of this proposal have been raised. What we have at the moment, the pavement level is 2.4 metres above ordnance datum, and the non-sleeping areas accommodation would be at 2.79 metres above ordnance datum, and the sleeping areas would be at 3.3 metres AOD along there. So progressively there are ramps up into the building there, and then a further ramp up to the high level you can see there. It's also relevant to mention that in the event of a flood, floodwaters could actually form around the building itself, albeit not within the building. But this proposal obviously has a hotel accommodation which would have a manager 24/7 hours present on site. They would be able to alert occupiers of the holiday accommodation to vacate the building in the event of an impending flood situation. And obviously those people would be able to return home. They wouldn't be made homeless, as it were, by this situation. So it's useful to bear that in mind. And also, one of the conditions I've included is a flood evacuation and flood warning plan. And within that, we'd expect that to include details of the managing being present on site 24 hours a day, as it were. And that has been confirmed in writing in any event by the applicant. So just a brief shot of the roofscape to show you here. Quite a lot of PV panels proposed on the roof, which would obviously be good for renewable energy aspect. Bit of sedum roofing available there, and air source heat pump extracts there. That's obviously the top of the lift and stairway area. Just to show you the site for delivery and access to the site, coming off Commercial Road here into the council-owned yard here, which would allow for appropriate service and delivery vehicles to access the site and provide servicing to the building, which is in this location here. So this is the proposed front elevation fronting School Street and directly opposite Great George Street, which comes down in front of it. And what we sought to do is, whilst the building is higher than the existing building, this would be a pitched roof going back in natural slate. The materials would be brick and an off-white render to the side panels there. We also sought to provide a very traditional sort of treatment to this particular part of the building. So it's 3-storey with traditional timber fenestration to ground floor, reinforcing that sense of commercial uses at ground floor level. And above it we have a range of different fenestration types, but appropriate to the conservation area, including flat roof dormers, pitched roof dormers, and projecting windows as per here. And these would all be in timber fenestration. It is a proposal, it is supported not just by myself, but also by our conservation officer. And this is the west elevation, looking at it from Commercial Road, although you wouldn't see much of this would be hidden behind the range of buildings associated with the range, which obviously have a presence on Commercial Road. But you can see that the rear extension area, the rear element of the building is a more contemporary design, up another floor, 4 floors, and with quite a lot of appropriately designed fenestration to add visual interest to that. And these windows would be in aluminium as the finish. There are also some dummy windows on the gable end here, which is a characteristic feature very often present in the Weymouth town centre street scene. We have the east elevation, the other side, which is effectively the elevation beyond the back of St Thomas Street, just to give you a feel for that. Similar fenestration again, run you back into the site, 4-storey flat roof structure. You notice there are obviously windows here which would look towards the backs of the the properties in St Thomas Street. However, the distances are quite appreciable over to those buildings behind. So in residential amenity terms, any overlooking would be within very much acceptable limits in terms of distances involved. And that's the south elevation, which is the very rear of the site, which obviously faces towards the rear of the commercial premises, fronting onto Lower Bond Street, adjacent to the range. So you've got Boots and similar uses there. So some fenestration on the rear there, with some visual interest by the mix of materials, which varies between some cladding and some brickwork, etc. So this is just to give you a sense of the extent to which from public land, a lack of visibility of the rear proposed extension because of the presence of the existing buildings along St Thomas Street frontage. As you can see, you wouldn't in fact really see that from public land, although obviously it would be seen from many windows at the back of the properties in St Thomas Street. And then on the other side, commercial road elevation, again you see the buildings of the range here, and so a portion of the elevation would be visible there. But that elevation has quite a lot of visual interest with the repetition of the window rhythms there, which add some interest to the street scene, viewing it from Commercial Road, and obviously the traditional element fronting School Street is there. So taking you through a few photos, this is the existing building as you come straight down Great George Street. It's a building that was erected in probably the late 1960s. It's a pretty unremarkable brick and design generally, although they've tried to sort of, in this sort of fenestration, copy the historic windows in that part of the conservation area. Hasn't been too successful. And also the elevation lacks any real architectural or visual coherence. So our conservation officer doesn't consider the removal of this building to be detrimental to the conservation area and does support the replacement building, as indeed do I. You can also see down here, there's a small commemorative tablet here, which commemorates the use of the site historically as the Royal Weymouth Hospital, which particularly treated troops returning during the First World War from their injuries. So that's a historically significant tablet. So one of my conditions includes carefully removing and putting aside that tablet for reinstatement on the new building. So this is the view from Commercial Road, Town Council offices here, Mulberry Terrace running through there. So you can see the existing building here has a very bland and uninteresting elevation, which is visible from public land. So the proposed building would be, in my view, far superior to that in terms of articulation of architectural interest. And this is obviously the service and delivery yard. So on the site itself is our building here. It's attached to number 3 here, which is a listed building. And there's an alleyway which serves the site, which runs through the back there, just a pedestrian access, which is used for bin storage and access to the this side and also to the rear of properties in St Thomas Street. So there is, although it is physically linked to, it appears that there's a frontage row of bricks here, and behind is a slight void. So it is possible to remove the building without causing harm to the structure of this listed building. And I do have a condition to ensure an appropriate method statement addresses that point. We also see here some of the characteristic features of the conservation area: flat roof dormers, pitched roof dormers, projecting windows, which clearly has been picked up in the now proposed design. Directly opposite the site you have Myrtle Cottage, not listed but a very characterful building. And then here we have the Masonic Hall, which is Grade 2 listed. So obviously a lot of significant historical buildings in the immediate locality. And this just shows you, I've taken this from the fire escape on the back of the Colwell Shopping Centre alongside the alley, It just gives you a feel for the backs of the properties in St Thomas Street. A few have small balconies and some windows, but they're generally fairly well set away from the building, so there wouldn't be any unacceptable overlooking in residential amenity terms from the proposed scheme. It just shows you the alleyway access itself from the back of the site looking back towards School Street, so access would be retained as part of this scheme. Okay, so the main planning issues, obviously the principal policies Way 1 and Way 2 of the local plan support it, and more specifically, the policies Econ 6 supports new build holiday accommodation in the town centre, and Econ 4 includes the retail retained at ground floor frontage, so it's consistent with those policies. In terms of the effect on heritage assets, obviously a lot of important heritage assets in the areas I've mentioned. Conservation officer is supportive of it, and we feel it's an appropriate addition to this conservation area. Residential amenity terms, acceptable distances between existing and proposed dwellings, and no significant problems in terms of overlooking or overbearing on the amenities of existing residential properties in the locality. Flood risk, I've mentioned obviously the importance of that and how the floor levels would be raised to take account of that, and how the flood evacuation and warning plan would be relevant. Sustainability and renewable energy terms, it's a sustainable site as a town centre site. Although there's no car parking specifically with the site, obviously there are car parks nearby in Commercial Road, but in this case obviously that there's a very good network of public transport in terms of bus and rail services available within easy walking distance, and also it's easy walking distance of many shops, facilities in the town centre from the proposed hotel. Renewable energy terms, obviously there's photovoltaic cells shown on the roof. They'd be using air source heat pumps. Most of the windows would be triple or double glazed, so quite a lot of renewable energy usefully included in the scheme. In terms of ecology, I refer to the £14,310 contribution towards mitigating the possible recreational impacts on the Fleet and Chesil Special Area of Conservation, and also as mentioned in your update sheet, there's an update to the ecology condition with updated surveys. So from your update sheet, that condition 17 should replace the one that's on your written report, and that includes reference to a roof survey and a nesting survey, and would include provision of features such as bee bricks, swift bricks, and bat bricks as well. In terms of access and parking, explain that earlier. In terms of pedestrian access is available down the side, and obviously several points of access into and out of the building, and vehicular access is available from Commercial Road for the servicing deliveries, and the parking, as I said, is available locally in the area. So just briefly, just touching on a few of the conditions. That condition, no demolition until contract agreed, that's to minimise the chances of the site being left, without a replacement building. So that's the motivation behind that condition. I mentioned the method statement to protect the listed building at 3 School Street. Historic plaque, I referred to. Service management, obviously, conditions. There's a little bit of scope for hard and soft landscaping around the fringes of the building and some sedum roofing on the roof, so that's what would be addressed by that. Final materials details would be important. Shopfront details are also significant. Flood risk assessment, obviously, it's tied into that. The flood evacuation warning plan has been referenced, and the parking and loading has just been referred to. So travel plan is also included because there would be some scope for improving that under the travel plan. So that, Chairman, concludes my presentation. I recommend you delegate approval subject to the Section 106 agreement and conditions with the addition of that replacement condition as per your update sheet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Bob. Members, you now have the opportunity to ask any technical questions of the planning officer before we move to debate. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that the plaque is going to be moved. Can I just insist that, although it may be moved, it be moved to a prominent location? Because often you find that the plaques are removed and then put sort of in the, in the back cupboard or whatever. So I'd like it to remain on actual proper display as opposed to just kept in name only.
Bob, would you like to comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I mean, my expectation is that it would be inserted somewhere on the front elevation so that it's clearly visible from School Street to the public.
Thank you, Bob, on that. Councillor Kimber, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Paul Kimber, Portland. I just wanted to ask a bit more in depth about the flood risk. We've made great play about the flood risk. Surely that pressure is there on the flood risk already with the Colwell Centre. I just wondered whether, I'm more or less thinking through the presentation to say, oh, yes, I agree, it's a larger building, but I just wondered why that's become suddenly a flood risk. And could I ask a supplementary? No, I won't ask this. I'll wait for the debate. Thank you. But I'll keep for the flood risk. Thanks.
When you speak, could you speak into the microphone? And if you look at me, we can hear you. If you look at the planning officer, we can't hear you. It's just one for the future. Okay, Bob, could you answer the question, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, the situation with the existing building is that it's retail uses or has been retail uses with a bar above. So it's active, awake accommodation for human usage, whereas the new use would include a substantial amount of sleeping accommodation. And therefore, it's a much more vulnerable use, which then prompts why we've gone to the higher finished floor level for the sleeping accommodation than the frontage area, which is non-sleeping, which would be the retail and the restaurant area. So that's why the distinction is drawn there, Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. Are you happy with that, Councillor Kimber? And if so, would you like to ask your second question? No. Oh, you don't have one. Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move to Councillor Christopher, please.
Good morning. Can I please ask the officers about the possibility of conditioning in relation to the period of occupancy such that this will actually be maintained as what you might call a traditional hotel and not become a hostel. And I must admit, I've been searching around to try and find a definition of what actually constitutes long-term guests. And the best I've come up with is a Government Notice 709/3, which indicates that the taxation treatment is different if a resident is in a particular business environment such as this for in excess of 28 days. So my question for officers, is it possible that we can have a condition that no one person shall actually be resident in this proposed dwelling for more than 28 days, i.e. not resident in a room, but actually conditioning that no one person should actually be a resident in the building for more than 28 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Christopher. Anne Collins, please, or Bob, could you comment on that for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We wouldn't normally condition a hotel accommodation in that sort of way. We wouldn't normally place restrictions on the period of occupation. But our expectation with a hotel is that, that the period of occupation is relatively short. And if anything to that.
Yeah, Chair. Yes, we don't normally condition by its very nature. A hotel is people coming and going and sort of staying there for periods of time. However, if somebody was able to pay for a room or they could stay for an extended period, But if members were looking to impose such a condition, there'd have to be a justifiable planning reason. And I'm not clear at this time what such planning reason would be, because it would have to be based on a policy reason as well.
Yes, thank you for that. If just bear with me, Councillor Christopher, I'm just going to check with our legal Phil Crowther, just to see what his thoughts are on this one. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm sort of concerned that whether we are actually allowed to condition the use of the building in that manner. So just bear with me for a second. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the use class that includes hotels is used as a hotel, boarding or guest house. Is possible, in theory, to impose a condition limiting the use to one of those three uses within the use class. So it would be possible for you to condition use to specifically a hotel, but as Anne and Bob have just said, you would need a reason for doing so. I think in my view, it wouldn't be a reasonable condition to limit the length that somebody could stay in a hotel. I'm sure there are instances where people do choose to live in a hotel rather than their home. Again, in theory possible, but my instinct would be that wouldn't be a reasonable condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Christopher, would you like to come back, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Simon Christopher Dorset, Councillor of Marshwood Vale Ward. My reasoning for this is because this is a constrained site without a great deal of parking, etc. And surely the intention here is to derive the economic benefits of tourists actually visiting Weymouth. And we all would like to see more tourists visit Weymouth and come down on the train and not actually come down and bring their cars and pollute the area, etc. So that is one of my reasons for suggesting that there should be a condition that no one person should actually be resident in what is a hotel for more than 28 days. Whilst I'm also speaking, I'm slightly mystified why there is a contribution in relation to Chesil Bank or similar and not into improving transport within Weymouth. But I'm sure somebody will explain that to me at some point.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Christopher. I think we're going to struggle with this one, but I'm just going to go to Anne Collins again, please, for some clarification.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a town centre site lacking parking, but whether you're coming for one night or 29 nights, you'd know that when you came, and you could come by train and stay for 29 nights or whatever. So I don't think parking would be a justifiable reason given the available transport options within the town centre. And in terms of the economic benefits, somebody staying in a hotel for whatever reason, they're not got a kitchen, they're going to be going out and buying things, they're going to be going out and paying for their laundry to be done somewhere, etc. So again, whether you're staying for one night, 7 nights or 14 nights, there's no reason that somebody wouldn't be spending in the local economy. So again, I don't see that as a material planning reason in terms of limiting the length of occupation.
Yes, thank you. I'll give you one more chance, Councillor Christopher, but I'm hearing from the planning officer and legal that it's not going to be a reasonable condition unless you can back it up with a material planning consideration. So you may speak. Thank you.
I just feel it's incumbent on me to express what I think are the concerns of the people of Weymouth, that this application for a hotel might one day actually lead the site to actually develop into the form of a hostel. And I think that is a genuine concern for the people of Weymouth. And I look forward to hearing the thoughts of other people on this matter.
When we move to debate, we can certainly explore that further. I'm of the opinion that we need to look at this as an application in front of us, not wait what it may be sometime in the future. But we'll explore that in debate. Members, any more technical questions for the officers, please? No? Okay, we'll now open the floor to debate on this application. Who would like to speak, please? Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I just want to make a few comments. This building's been empty now for several years. It's a pretty ugly building. It's an eyesore. It's on a very, it's near the main high street. It'd be good to see it used for something else. I do have a concern that a sort of a budget hotel will have an impact on local B&Bs who are already having to put up with other factors such as, Dorset Council increasing their rents. So this as well will be another factor that may possibly harm them. But however, I feel if we don't approve it, then we could then find ourselves with an empty building for another 10, 20 years. So it is a bit of a tricky one. I do agree with what Councillor Christopher says. There are other hotels in the area that are used primarily to house for hostels, and that is a concern for this. But on other planning applications, it's always been sort of, you take it as what it currently is in application, not what it could be in the future. So it is a tricky one, but I mean, I'm leaning towards approval at the minute, but we'll wait to hear what others have to say.
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. Any other member wishing to speak, please? I think now's your opportunity, because otherwise I'm going to assume you have enough information to make a decision shortly. Councillor Kimber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor O'Leary. It would be in balance. I mean, trouble is in life, every decision making is usually lighter and darker shades of grey, and I believe this could be a good use of this area. The Colwell Centre has been empty for far too long, and if you like, it's beginning to show confidence in this by building this type of hotel, and I'm generally mindful to support that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kimber. Any other member wishing to speak, please? Councillor Shortell.
Oh, been such a long time. David Hotel, West Moors and Three-Legged Cross. Yes, it's 22 bedrooms in this particular hotel and very little provision for parking. And I know that that's been discussed, and in fact that is dedicated to parking areas outside the area. But there is still that choice whereby people coming to offload and load their belongings to the hotel would mean that that would congest the street. I was just wondering if that's been thought of.
Thank you, Councillor Shortell. I will answer that for you, but I'll let Anne Collins do it instead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just repeat that question, please?
Yes, sorry. By the way, we do have Paul Eastwood with us, who's going to be highways, and he's an engineer. He can answer that sort of question, so I'll pass it over to Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I just have that question again, please?
Thank you. Yes, my concern was the fact that we've got a new hotel, 22-bedroom hotel, with no parking facilities. Although parking would be designated to parking areas outside the particular location, there's still the problems where people actually call at the hotel to load and offload their belongings into the hotel premises, which might cause problems within the street.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just double check the conditions we put. It wasn't my conditions I put on here, so just give me a second. Yeah, so we've we put a condition on that an outline travel plan should be submitted. We accept the situation that it's not got parking, but because it's a town centre location and it's got links to local transport, retail and leisure facilities, we just expect a travel plan would be acceptable in this instance.
Thank you for that, Paul. Councillor Shortell, are you happy with the response?
Travel plan, what does that mean?
I'll pass you back to Paul, but there's a travel plan in place, and as it's a town centre location, it is actually a solution to the problem that you're bringing up, but I'll let Paul elaborate on that. Oh, sorry, Bob, do you wish to? Okay. Bob Burden, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just useful to bear in mind that the site is close to significant highways giving access to the area. Commercial Road, for example, drop-offs can be made there quickly, and also you have a number of car parks in Commercial Road, which is literally just over the road from Mulberry Terrace running down to the hotel. So you can quite easily work out, drop-off with that system available, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bob. Councillor Shortell, are you happy with the response? Okay. Councillor Kimber, do you wish to speak again? Or? Okay, thank you. Any other members wishing to speak on this? If not, then I'll be seeking a proposal, please, from the floor. In that case, I'll look to my Vice Chair, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'd like to propose that we agree to go with this and approve delegated authority for the planning officers to implement this application.
Yeah, Bob, could you just put the recommendation on the screen, please, just for the benefit of members and me, who will probably forget some of the words. Yeah, thank you very much. There was a change on the update sheet, wasn't it? I think it was condition 17. Yes, okay, so we're including that as well in your proposal, yeah. Do I have a seconder from the floor, please? Councillor Kimber, would you like to speak?
No, I think it's all been said. I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you. In that case, Councillor Shortell, we have a proposer and a seconder. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just a point of order, Chairman. Is the proposal and seconding related to recommendation A or both?
Yeah, it is both, actually, but I'm just checking with Philip Crowther. Yeah, it is both. So I think, Councillor Shortell, you should remember that from the times when you were chair. So we have a proposal and a seconder. Nobody else wishes to speak. So could I please have a show of hands, all those in favour of approving this application as per the condition on the proposal on the screen? We have 7 in favour. Any against, please? Any abstentions? Councillor Christopher abstained. Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda has been deferred for technical reasons. Therefore, we will move to item 7, which is P/VOL/2025/ no, one of the Democratic Services will go. Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. I'll just pause for a second. I've forgotten we'd send Councillor Bell out the room. For the benefit of the members of the public, Councillor Bell and Councillor Northam have now returned to the chamber, so we're up to full strength. So item 6 has been deferred for technical reasons. We'll move to item 7, and I'll state it again, is P/VOL/2025/01557, which is 4 and 5 Bedford Terrace, Longbreedy, DT2 9HW. This will be presented by Catherine Melhuish. Are you ready, Catherine? We'll just pause for a second, the technical issues. Okay, I think we're ready to start now. Catherine?
Apologies for the delay. Good morning, members. This application is for 4 and 5 Bedford Terrace in Longbreedy, and it's been brought to committee because it is owned by a council member, a council officer. And this application is for a variation of conditions 2 and 5 from a previous consented scheme to demolish rear extensions and build new ones. The application site is in Longbreedy in the conservation area, and it's situated here, so it's numbers 5 and 4. Numbers 4 and 5 Bedford Terrace are 19th century cottages built as workers' cottages. Okay. The application condition 2 that they're varying is basically slightly altering the ground floor plan and the upstairs floor plan. Not majorly, it's all modern fabric, so nothing historic is going to be harmed. It's literally a few tweaks to make bathrooms bigger and living spaces bigger. And condition 5 relates to this ground floor extension bit. It was proposed to be constructed of timber, and they now want to change it to steel. Again, nothing else will change. It's literally just the material. So in the initial application, we concluded that the benefit of removing these sort of odd, unattractive bits to the rear and adding on a new extension to give the building a viable future use outweighed the less than substantial harm that might be caused by actually doing the work. So therefore, recommend that this one is granted subject to the conditions beneath.
Okay, thank you very much. Short and sweet. I think it's come to us because the applicant is an employee of the council. It sounds to me like there's just two conditions, variation of conditions 2 and 5 are all that we're considering today, members. So if there are any technical questions for the conservation officer, please. No, we don't seem to have any technical questions. In that case, members, we'll move to debate. Who would like to speak first, please? Councillor O'Leary.
Happy to propose, Chairman.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if it was a wedding proposal then for a second. So we have a proposal to accept from Councillor O'Leary. I believe Councillor Kimber, are you going to second? Councillor Kimber is second. Nobody else wish to speak on this one? If not, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, I think that's 9-4. All those against? And abstentions, please. Councillor Christopher. Thank you very much, members, for that one. We will now move to item 8 on the agenda, which is P/VOC/2025/01606, which is Upline Road Business Park, Upline Road, Lyme Regis, presented by Steve Tapscott. If you're ready, Steve, I'll pass over to you. Thanks. Bear with me, members. We have a slight technical hitch again. I think we've got a morning of gremlins.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that pause there where we just sorted out that technical issue. Okay, so this is a site at Lyme Regis Industrial Estate, up Lyme Road in Lyme Regis. It's quite a complicated looking description, but it's not as scary as it looks. Essentially, this is the third time that this particular site has come before committee. The first one was in early 2024, which established the development of 13 B8 storage units. And then it came back to committee in September of last year for an amendment to reposition some of the footprints of those units. And now it's back again because the applicant wishes to make one additional tweak, which I'll talk you through in a minute, relating to a toilet block. So, it's not letting me skip to that. Here we go. So here's the application site. We've got, inside the red line is the whole of the site with the 13 units. Over here is the health centre, medical centre. Over here is a gym and a company called Precision Waterjet, which will become relevant when I talk about my next application on the agenda. And we've got some residential properties up here at Hay Close. So the development is well underway. These photos were taken a couple of months ago, and you can see it's nearing completion. They're looking quite smart. There's a couple of photos there. Here's a photograph of the site entrance. It was all locked up at the time, so I couldn't gain access, but I'd imagine it's probably more advanced today than it was at this point in time. So here is a picture of an excerpt rather, of the previously approved layout. And what I'll try and do is flip between this and the proposed layout to show the differences. So this is what was approved, and this is what's proposed. And it might not look like much. You'd be right for thinking that, because if I then go to this next slide, it's more focused on exactly what the differences are. So on the left here is what was approved, and you can see the toilet block down here. I'll say it's a block, it's a single toilet in its own little building. And what they want to do is move it over to this side of the site, which would also require moving the cycle hoops and the bin stores. And that is the extent of this application. And the reason why it's before committee, I should add, is that because the access to get to the site is Dorset Council-owned land. So this is what the toilet looks like. These are the approved plans. This, here on the right, That's what it looked like in front of this building here. And that's it over there as well. So these fresh plans show it moved over to the other side. And this means that that view I showed you earlier on from the entrance to the site, it would no longer be in that view as you look into it. It would now be tucked away more in the corner. So in terms of the key considerations before you today, the principle of development, it's not whether or not the 13 B8 storage units are appropriate. That's already been decided. The permission's already extant and has been implemented. It's the principle really of can they do this change to their permission? And the case law says that as long as what you're doing doesn't go to the operative part of the permission, i.e. 13 storage units, then it's okay in principle. And in our opinion, moving this toilet block to the other side of the site doesn't go to the operative part of the permission, so it's acceptable in principle, therefore. In terms of the scale, design, impact on local character and the national landscape, we don't believe there'll be any at all. You could probably argue, actually, that given that it would be moving from that entrance towards another part of the site, it could have a minor betterment to that view into the site, albeit a small one because the building is quite small anyway. It would become closer to those residential properties at Hay Close that I mentioned earlier. However, the scale of it, it's not likely to lead to any overshadowing or overbearing presence or noise or anything like that. So we don't believe there'll be any impact at all on amenity. In terms of highway impacts, we've had no objections from the local highway authority. The access will remain the same, the parking, the manoeuvrability within the site, so no impacts there. There will be no risks in terms of flooding and drainage. The previous permission had a condition attached to it requiring drainage to go to a piped system rather than soakaways, because soakaways aren't appropriate in this area. And we can simply repeat that condition and bring it over to this fresh permission. In terms of coastal erosion and land stability, it is in zone 2 of the land stability classification. We've had a response from the stability team who said that this wouldn't impact upon that. Ecology and biodiversity net gain, well, it wouldn't impact at all on either. For BNG, that was brought in February of last year, and because the original permission was granted before then, and they are simply varying that permission, we can't now retrospectively apply BNG to this site. And lastly, there are some quite nice trees around the site, but the moving of this toilet would not affect them. So the recommendation is to approve subject to the following conditions. These are all pretty much rolled over from the previous permission, so these are all conditions that committee has already approved. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Members, technical questions? You'll surprise me if there are any, but they may be. To the officer, please. Anybody? No? Okay. In that case, I'll throw the floor open to debate. Anybody wishing to speak on this one? Could you do that through the microphone, please?
Councillor Paul Kimber, Portland, move approval.
Thank you, Councillor Kimber. Councillor Monks, please.
Councillor Craig Monks, Bedminster, second approval.
Thank you very much. We have a proposal and a seconder. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? If not, we'll move straight to the vote then, please. Can I have a show of hands for those who wish to approve this application? I think that is unanimous. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to item 9 now, which is P/FUL/2025/01232, the lower site, up Lyme Road, Lyme Regis, presented again by Steve Tapscott. Over to you, Steve. Thank you. Sorry, we need to note Councillor O'Leary has actually left the chamber. He will come back, I'm sure, but he won't be able to take part in this one if he misses it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, same site again, pretty much. If it lets me, sorry, it's not letting me flip. There we go. Only this one is to change the use of one of those approved 13 storage units into a B2 use. So B2 is general industrial. So as you can see here, it's not the whole site, it just relates to this. If you look quite closely, it looks as though it might be 3 units, but it actually is 1, albeit it looks like 3 units. Again, the reason for it coming before committee is because this access into the site is council owned. So I'm afraid it's a bit of a repeat of the same photos I had before, although I have slipped this one in, which actually shows the rear of the one unit that looks like 3, which is these ones here. And here is a floor plan of what it would look like. The end user and the applicant is called Precision Waterjet, and they're a company that uses high-pressured water to cut things. So a use like that we consider would be B2 in planning terms. So B2 is general industrial. And so the principle of a general industrial use on an employment site is fine in our local plan. This is a key employment site where such uses are ordinarily focused, so we're content with that. In terms of the design impact local character in the national landscape, there'll be none as far as we're concerned because it's simply using this existing building with no physical changes to it. Amenity is a key consideration, however, because B2 use, being general industrial, can lead to various impacts, not limited to, but for example, dust, vibration, noise, that sort of thing. And Precision Waterjet isn't the sort of company that would likely lead to dust, for example, but we have to consider that if we are approving a B2 use, it could then go to other companies that might want to move in the future, and they could create noise, vibration, dust, or whatever else that is harmful. So the way around that is that we are able to approve the use for a water jet cutting business only. And then that way, this Precision Waterjet would be able to use it. They would then be able to perhaps lease it to another waterjet company in the future or sell it to another waterjet company. And then that way, this key issue of noise would be mitigated. In terms of highway impacts, safety, access and parking, there are no changes to the actual layout of the site proposed, but my colleagues in highways did have a bit of a concern in terms of the deliveries and the nature of the vehicles that would be going to the site, bearing in mind, of course, that it's quite near to those properties at Hay Close. So we went back to the applicant with this question to say, well, what is the nature of these deliveries and collections? And they told us that their situation is quite unusual because you may recall from my earlier presentation on this site that Precision Waterjet are already nearby. So they're not going to vacate that existing building. They want to keep that going as their hub, as they're calling it, but they also want this new building to expand their business effectively. So they would use their existing hub, existing building, as their key place for deliveries, collections, while the new building that they're trying to get permission for would be an outlier, and they would estimate around 4 trips per week for collections and deliveries. And that would be via vans, so no sort of big articulated lorries or anything like that. So on that basis of around 4 deliveries or collections per week, and by vans, my colleagues in highways are happy with the application, and we can condition that to any grant of consent. What you'll see in your update sheet is that when I originally drafted the condition, I only referred to deliveries, where in actual fact, collections is also part of it. So in the update sheet, you'll see that I have amended, or proposed rather, to amend condition 6, I believe it is, to refer to a cumulative total of 4 collections or deliveries per week. In terms of flood risk and drainage, it's no different from the extant permission. We've gone out to South West Water for their comments. They are raising no objections. I've also gone back to the applicant to query, given that this is a water jet business, what's that going to do in terms of drainage? Will there be any impacts, environmental impacts arising from it, that sort of thing? And what they've told me is that the machines, the water goes through the machines, and then after that there's a process of filtering and cleansing. And then once all that, the sediment and everything is disposed of and removed from the water, it can be just taken to the combined sewer. South West Water do monitor Precision Waterjet. So in terms of the volume that they put into the system and the cleanliness of that water, they are already bound by the terms and conditions of South West Water. So it's just worth bringing that to your attention. In terms of ecology and biodiversity net gain, there's no change to the footprint of the building or anything like that, nothing different from their the extant permission. So ecology and BNG don't apply. No impact on trees either, given that there's no actual physical changes to the building in relation to trees. And so the recommendation is to approve subject to these conditions. Just to talk you through a couple of key ones. Condition 3, water jet cutting only. So that means no B2 generally, just a water cutting business. Their submitted noise assessment said that as mitigation, the business should only operate between 8 in the morning and 6 in the evening, Monday to Friday. Then noise report talked about different noise levels for the equipment and for the actual fabric of the building in terms of doors and things like that. And so condition 5 is to ensure that they comply with those recommendations. Condition 6 is all about the deliveries and collections I just mentioned. And then the next 3 conditions are simply rolled over from the extant permission. So no external storage, trying to keep the site looking tidy, no lighting without planning permission, and for all drainage to go into a pipe system and not soakaways. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Members, any questions for the planning officer? Councillor Northern, please, followed by Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair. I note that this is on a key employment site, and I was surprised when reading the previous item that the previous permission had given permission for storage units, which don't provide an awful lot of employment compared with light industrial usage, which is what this is going to provide. So in the local plan, it's still a key employment site, even though this individual permission has been granted. So I would like the officer to clarify why he's not happy to just have this one unit as B2, which would be very much in line with the key employment site condition, because it would be bringing more employment. And that to me is a good thing. And it is light industrial use, not heavy industrial use. So I'd just like an answer to that question initially, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Northern. I'll pass you across to Steve on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, the reason for the restriction, you're quite right. You know, B2 uses are appropriate on key employment sites, but subject to them being acceptable in amenity terms. So in this case, we could have a B2 use of a water jet company, which is acceptable, as long as the noise is limited. But we couldn't, for example, have a panel beater or something like that move in that would create an awful lot of disturbance for those neighbouring properties. So that's why this particular type of B use, we believe, needs to be restricted for amenity reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Northern.
Looking at those units, they are quite nice units, and they're, as you say, nearing construction. And my guess is that people are going to be moving into them. So I would imagine that there may be some future requests for change of use to light industrial use. I would hope so, that's the case, and I hope they'll be looked on favourably. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Northern. Councillor Kimber, please.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Paul Kimber, Portland. When we listed the days, we said Monday to Friday, 8 till 6. I just wonder, I know when I go around my local industrial estates, you normally find Saturday a almost normal working day. I just wonder why we didn't include Saturday, and was the applicant happy about this? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kimber. That's a good question. I'll pass you over to Steve, please.
I can only infer that the applicant was happy because it was suggested in their own noise report. So those hours were specifically from their own technical report they gave to us, and our environmental health colleagues said, yes, that's fine. In the future, they are at liberty to apply to vary this permission, if we grant permission today, and that could involve the hours of opening as part of any future variation that they could apply for. So what we're not saying is absolutely no to Saturday opening in the future. This is simply reflecting what they've applied for and what we think is acceptable.
Thank you very much for that, Steve. Councillor Kimber, are you happy with that response? Thank you. Any other member wishing to put a technical question to the planning officer? No? In that case, I'll open the floor to debate. Who would like to speak? Councillor Northern, please.
I'd like to propose we accept this with the amendments, with the conditions rather, that were recommended. I think the fact that Precision Waterjet are already on the industrial estate nearby means that this is relatively easy to accept as the precedent's been set. Thank you.
Thank you. Just clarifying, including the condition on the update sheet on the deliveries. Thank you. Is there a seconder for this proposal? Thank you, Councillor Christopher. I think just beat Councillor Shortell by a short head there. Anybody else wishing to speak on this before we move to the vote? Councillor Christopher.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's disappointing that the ward member for Lyme Regis and Charmouth isn't here this morning, but I'm the nearest ward member representing Marshall Vale Ward, and I'm very well acquainted with the site, having spent, for goodness, an incredible amount of time there waiting for school buses, but that was a few years ago. It is a constrained site, and that is possibly why the development on that side is of the nature that has been forthcoming, and I'm more than happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nobody else wishing to speak, I assume you all have enough information to make a decision on this one. In that case, I'll move to the vote. So all those in favour of approval, please. And I believe that is unanimous. So thank you very much, everybody, on that one. We now move to urgent items. Item 10, there are no urgent items. Item 11, exempt business. There is no exempt business. However, members, as I said before the meeting, if you'd like to stay afterwards, we have some discussions. Thank you very much. The meeting is now closed at 11:30. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, officers.